Hello, I'm the Miami Autism Dad Victor Antunez, the inclusive Miami Realtor, and this is the Autism Podcast at Miami's community newspapers. Today I'm with Florida Senator Alexis Calatayud from District 38, which is the West Kendall area. And yes?
It's yes, and.
Okay, and?
It starts in Key Biscayne and it goes all the way down to Homestead.
Oh, wow. That's a big area.
Yeah.
Very diverse area too.
Very diverse.
So I guess Brickell will be there, Coconut Grove, the Gables.
So it's Key Biscayne, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, South Miami, all of it. Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, the Homestead Air Reserve Base, Naranja, South Miami Heights, Schools, Princeton, West Perrine, Richmond Heights, The Falls, Killian, East Kendall, Dadeland, and Glenver Heights.
Wow, it's amazing. And you are born and raised local.
Born and raised in Miami-Dade.
Good for you. And you grew up in Kendall, you were saying?
I grew up in Kendall. I grew up actually right outside of Lakes of the Meadows.
Okay.
I used to walk that all the time because I went to Jane S. Roberts, the little public school inside.
I know it.
We used to chase like little ducks in the big Lakes of the Meadows. Not as an adult, but as a kid. Yeah. And then I attended Westwood Christian for middle school and high school. And I am a proud FIU alumna.
Good for you. And that's where you started your political career was school politics.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. When I was a freshman at FIU, the state legislature was finishing the final year of changing the SAT and ACT score requirements to receive the 4-year Bright Future Scholarship. So I was going to school. I started as a freshman at FIU in 2012, but the Great Recession had quite an impact on the state legislative budget. And so what they had done is over the course of multiple years, escalated year after year the score that you'd need to attain to receive a Bright Future Scholarship. What this did in Miami was the freshman class after mine at FIU, 25% of those students lost their scholarships. And the population at FIU, 50% are the first in their family to go to college, and 60% are low income. So going from a 4-year ride to zero is transformational in the worst way.
Yeah.
For people who are breaking generational poverty through educational attainment. I started going to Tallahassee as a freshman in college to tell the story of my peers and people whose life could be changed if this small investment was made on the front end, their investment in their higher education by the state. And so I, for the last decade, have been advocating for investment in education, mostly in the public realm, either for nonprofits, for FIU, for the entirety of the public education system. I worked for the Department of Education for 2 years during COVID, and I was their chief advocate for the K through 20, really the birth through 20 public education system statewide.
Through 20, because it's through 22 for kids with disabilities. I didn't know about the K through 20 though, for the regular kids.
We call it birth through 20 to encompass all of the higher education components. Florida is not yet at a full streamlined birth through 20 education system, although we call it that. I am really passionate about investment in early childhood education, both for the investment it'll make into our kids being ready to learn how to read by 3rd grade, and on the flip side, the true value for workforce readiness for parents to have a safe and educational environment that they can afford for their kids to be during the day.
Okay, my next question might be the closest I ever get to a gotcha question, but it's not a gotcha question because I know that at the end of the day, you're just one senator, and there's how many senators up in Tallahassee?
There's 40 senators and 120 House members.
Right. Now, speaking about early education, we have VPK in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
But a complaint that I've heard about VPK is it's only 3 hours.
Yes.
But here's the problem, and you probably know this. If you're a working parent, you don't need 3 hours. You need 8 hours.
Yeah.
So if you're a working parent and there's this free VPK available, but you can't use it because it's only 3 hours, what are we doing to fill that gap?
Great question. So there's a couple things we do today. So the other large program that funds childcare in Florida is called School Readiness. It's mostly funded by the federal government. I think it's an 85% federal investment to a 15% state investment for that program. It's for lower income families. And what we do today for VPK, for families that are lower income, that it's not an option for someone to pick up and drop off a kid for 3 hours, is we braid together the funding for VPK and school readiness to cover a full day of care. One of the core challenges with school readiness is, and I've been working to address this, actually the foremost advocate in the legislature on it, to increase the income eligibility for families. We hadn't increased it since the program's inception in 99. And so we were working at the federal poverty level as the income threshold, but Florida's minimum wage has dramatically increased over the national minimum wage. We're going to be at $15 an hour this year. And so that's not kept up. So my work has been to make sure we're elevating the income eligibility to the reality of the increased wages our families are experiencing. So the subsidy program, the affordability program, continues to have the impact it has had. And so when we look at the challenge of VPK being a 3-hour program, school readiness has acted as the braided funding to make a full day out of a 3-hour day for the lowest income families. I'm very passionate about thinking through new models of funding early childhood education differently. One of the ideas that I've shared in several circles and have been kind of socializing around different policymakers and policy leaders around the country is we have a universal school voucher system in Florida. And I think there can be considerable reforms added to the program that help us return to our core value proposition. And one of those could really meaningfully be begin the program not at kindergarten, but at birth, particularly for the low and moderate income families. That will be a game changer for the families you're talking about, to be able to not just have to pray and wait that they can get to their child being 5 years old, well, they'll have a public free option of education. What happens those first 5 years? And VPK is only 1 year, that 3-hour program. So I'm very passionate about finding new ways to support our low and moderate income earning families in those first 5 years of life, not just for the workforce component of mom and dad being able to put food on the table, but the educational enrichment component. And this is something that I've been looking to champion for multiple years. And as we enter into this new legislative period of a new governor, a new speaker, a new president of the legislature, we can really think through older paradigms and bring to birth new ideas.
Now, when you talk about braiding together the VPK and the school readiness, as a parent who's never done this sounds complex to me.
Sure.
Is there anybody that would guide me through this?
Yes.
Okay.
You will be guided through
by who?
By the early learning provider. So your child care center is already having these conversations and has these relationships with the Early Learning Coalition. So every area or region of the state has an early learning coalition that acts as the quasi-private public entity in which state and federal funding flows, both for early Head Start, school readiness, and VPK. And they work locally with their children's services councils. Ours in Miami is the Children's Trust, to also provide expanded opportunities for subsidies for families that fall above the income eligibility threshold for school readiness. So your provider has a direct relationship already existing with the Early Learning Coalition. And when you come in to an early learning center and say, I want to do VPK, I don't have the personal budget to make up the other half day, but I can't have my kid only here 3 hours. There's no one to pick them up. What are the options for me? That's when they look at your eligibility for school readiness, or you can look at your eligibility for the Children's Trust program that provides the equivalent of the school readiness scholarship at a higher income bracket. And they're moving millions of dollars annually on providing families that extra support when, thank God, they're following the American dream. They're continuing their climb up the ladder of economic mobility. But what they're finding is they lose out on $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 a year of subsidy. That's real money to their household budget. for their child to be in a safe educational environment while they work.
Now let's talk about income eligibility, because that's a big one. And
Yeah.
I'll give you like an analogy of a program here in Dade County, and we
Yeah.
can extrapolate to the state. So here in Dade County, we have what's called the Zero Drownings Initiative.
Yes.
Well, I was in Liberty City, which, you know, is a lower income area of Dade County, and I was talking to one of the moms about zero drownings. She said the problem that she had with zero drownings is you can only be at 200% of the poverty level.
Mm-hmm.
And this is her words, not mine. She's like, you basically have to be living under a bridge to qualify for this. And she, you know, even though she's in Liberty City, which is a lower income area, she was making too much money for her child to go to zero drownings,
Right.
but she didn't have enough money for private lessons.
Right.
So you have these people that they're just barely making it, but they're in this limbo area. So how do we fix that?
Oh man, that's actually become my passion in the Florida legislature. So I've worked on multiple areas of this question. We call it a social benefit fiscal cliff, where
So that's a good one. Social benefit fiscal cliff. Okay.
Yeah, you fall over the cliff. You make too much money, but what you find is you're in a net negative household budget situation because of your promotion, because of your increase in wages. And that is a perverse incentive system. And it really is, it flies in the face of everything we believe in as Americans,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're, especially as a community of immigrants, so excited to work towards, right? So I've personally been carving out areas of the most problematic costs for families. One has been in housing, one has been in subsidized children's health insurance and kid care, and the other has been in school readiness, which is the largest childcare subsidy program that the state implements. And the goal has been to create a escalator, a way up and out of the program in every respect. We're trying to make sure where there is a gigantic fiscal cliff that keeps people at poverty or near poverty to maintain survival, we need to make sure that the programs that exist for that purpose actually act to that end. Many social benefits can act, instead of a trampoline, they act as a trap. And so I think people with a passion for economic mobility for our community, which really, that's what's driven me since I was 18 years old. We have to look at every system, and if it is holding people back from their potential, we need to find a way to reformat in a way that walks people out of government assistance, walks people out of government programs and into their fullest potential. That's what that's what kids need from their mom and dad. And that's what every mom and dad can do. So the social benefit fiscal cliff issue has actually been studied by the Atlanta Federal Reserve. And they have an incredible PhD working on this named Dr. Brittany Birkin. And the Aspen Institute also has a program called Ascent, where they're studying these social benefit fiscal cliffs and how they impact low and moderate income earners. And so I've been working really diligently over the last 4 years to examine how this impacts Florida and what is our role in reshaping our own programs. A lot of this lives at the federal level, though, and will require reimagining of these programs at the federal level. That's not something that today I can be engaged with in the role that I serve in a public service in the community, but where we can be meaningful at a state level, I have been the tip of the spear, because the idea that in this country anyone would say no to a promotion, say no to a new job, say no to anything that would benefit their family's long-term future for short-term survival kills me.
Yeah, that's really it's a difficult pill to swallow. So talking about these traps that can become trampolines. So a big one for me would be like early education, like VPK, but go to birth. What are like two other big ones for you?
Sure. How I look at it is, what is the major cost driver in a family's budget? So if we're sitting at a kitchen table, and we're looking at my household budget, we're looking at yours. You have 2 kids, I have 2 kids. And we're looking through to say, if I make $3 more an hour, I'm going to lose subsidized childcare. What would be the wise decision for me to do, knowing that that's going to cost my family? I have 2 kids, $9,000 a year. I'm going to have to find $18,000 if I accept that $3 promotion. That's not currently in my budget plan. What would you advise me as a friend to do? Right?
Pass it up.
So what we have to do as community members who care about the future of our community at scale, at system, is to ask the question, and this is how I work through it: what are the major cost drivers in a budget? How do we work through each in a market-driven solution? I don't think government solves problems. I think it acts as a partner to solve problems. And so this is where community input really matters. This is where stakeholder input matters. And this is where we link up private-public partnerships to make real substantive change. I carried legislation last year that created a child care endowment fund within the Florida Department of Education's Education Foundation. And our vision for that program is that the state makes an investment annually into this endowment fund. Employers across Florida can match funding and draw it down. And it would be funding made available to their employees for childcare costs.
Okay, so I was going to ask, like, what's the incentive for the employers and it's these costs?
Mm-hmm. And speaking with the Children's Trust only a couple months ago during the legislative session, they have interest in the philanthropic sense to potentially add funding and match. So this is money taken off that household budget decision-making of the family. When you have these multilateral partnerships that are public-private and philanthropic.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we need? We need a thriving workforce that is aggressive in making money for their family, taking opportunities, and taking risks.
Advancing, yes.
This is the most American thing in the world, right? So what I try to do, analyze what's driving families on hard decisions and try to work in partnership to iron out these flaws, these perverse incentives that do not help families in the long term.
Now, I'm guessing that these are all bipartisan issues. Everybody's behind it on both sides?
Whenever I pass one of these bills, and I passed 7 so far, we have unanimous support. It's simply the challenge of getting the policy right.
Mm-hmm.
And then creating the prioritization within a political process with a lot of priorities and a lot of people who are fighting for their issue. This has been mine. I wanted Miami for people at every stage of life, every level of income. And what happens in South Florida will happen in the rest of Florida in 10 to 15 years.
What do you mean by that?
We are the tip of the spear of affordability. We're the tip of the spear of real estate price increases. Everything that happens here will ultimately cycle into the other parts of Florida in terms of costs, in terms of economic challenges. You name it, we will experience it first. So the issues that I'm solving for now, for Miami, for South Florida, ultimately will serve the rest of the state. But at this moment, they may not realize it.
Yeah, and affordability is a big one. I was talking to the Chapman Partnership, which they work with the homeless.
Yeah.
And I asked Alex Paz, who was here, Alex, do you ever advise people to leave Dade County all the time? Which is pretty perverse because you're helping people get off the streets, which is, nobody can argue with that. But some people, they just can't live here. They can be working full time and they just can't afford to live here. And that's pretty perverse because we can't become because we need the service staff. We need people at all levels of society. And if they can't afford to live here, they have to go. And you can't commute 5 hours from Orlando to come down to Miami to work.
No.
So, I mean, that's such a tricky question though, like affordability, like, because there's real estate, there's wages,
I have good news.
Okay, tell me.
I created a program 4 years ago called the Hometown Heroes Down Payment Assistance Program.
I know it.
You know it?
Of course.
Amazing. So we've invested in the last 3 years, $250 million into $35,000, 0% interest loans for down payment assistance and closing costs. We have more than 20,000 families in Florida who are first-time home buyers because of this program. And July 13th, next week, An additional $50 million is made available statewide, and I'm hoping Miami gobbles it all up, for people who are ready to purchase their first home, but it's just that last push of funding. Whether that's a condo or townhome, getting into the market, home ownership is one of those tenets of the American dream we're talking about. That is, there's no replacement.
No.
And so while there are no silver bullets for housing affordability, particularly in Miami, hidden paradise that's now been found by everyone.
All over the world.
It's not just a New York, California, Chicago problem. It's international. We need to make sure we're providing a pathway to home ownership for our middle income, for our middle class folks. And that's why I think that ladder of economic mobility is so important. Our lower income earners become our middle income earners that become homeowners. That path needs to be crystal clear in the minds of our people. You work hard, and we'll make sure that there are pathways to opportunity. And it's really about seizing it and doing your hardest work. I deeply believe that Miami will always be that place, but we need to understand what's log jamming. We need to understand what's bottlenecking. And there will be some families that this will be that path. And so I'm working annually to increase the amount of funding we make available through Hometown Heroes, to increase the scope of who's eligible for the program, because I think this is one of those game changers. When I first was passing the legislation in 2023, I shared this with one of the constituents that I'd knocked on their door, 6 months before when I was running for office. And he said, "Oh, yeah, I know about that." And I was like, "Oh, really? We just created it." He said, No, I'm the Hometown Hero down payment assistance. I gave my kid $50,000 to buy a home. And it clicked for me. What we're doing is really creating opportunity where otherwise that family would not have access to that support. I'm knocking on doors today, yesterday, the day before. I'm meeting folks in their 60s, 70s who are saying, "I'm okay. I don't need anything, but my kids, I don't think they're going to live here. And I'm concerned about that." And this is one of those programs that can change that outcome and keep people not just living in Miami, renting in Miami, but owning in Miami. It will change the dynamic for keeping our families together in our community.
Okay, so I'm a real estate agent, and I write about Hometown Heroes all the time.
Awesome.
So I don't think that so much you have to increase eligibility. It's just the funding. Because you say the money comes out July 13th, but once that $50 million runs out, it's done.
Right.
And $50 million divided by $35,000 in the whole state of Florida, that's not that many people. So, I mean, just from my perspective, I think it's good who gets it right now. First-time home buyers, firefighters, law enforcement, people in healthcare. I think that's great. Just maybe the
teachers.
Teachers also. It's just the funding, I think, will need more funding.
I'm so passionate about it. We're actually seeing for the first time, we have $20 million that's going to be replenished in the program because it's an evergreen revolving loan fund from previous mortgages that folks are paying back.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because people a lot of times don't think downstream, because this money does come back. It does benefit the community beyond just the person, right?
Absolutely.
How do we quantify that?
We've structured the program that it's a second mortgage that you pay at the end of your mortgage or when you sell your home.
Okay.
So the timeline in which the money returns is subject to the individual loan. So what we can anticipate is we're now in year 4 of the program. We'll see this year $20 million returned of the $250 million investment that's already been made. So $230 million of that is still within the mortgage structures of all of these homes. And $20 million is already back to invest into the next family, to their first home. So we can't quite predict that cycle of return. I think maybe in probably 3 more years, we'll be able to see what is a steady number of reinvestment into the program. But I'm advocating for $100 to $150 million annual to make sure that all year round, July to July, the fiscal year, July to June, we have real access for families that are ready at that point. to go and to start the process of purchasing their first home.
Yeah, 4 years of data is not enough time to know the cash cycle when it comes back,
Yeah.
but maybe in 7 or 10 we will.
Yeah.
And do you ever see the point where enough is coming back where it just funds itself?
Absolutely.
Is that the end play?
The vision, that is the vision. And the big question is what that number might be. If we feel that $100 million investment's that number mark, or $150 million, potentially in 5 years, once we see that amount of return back in the evergreen revolving loan fund, maybe we stop making initial investments by the legislature. I'm open to any strategy that moves the ball. And the ultimate underlying principle is we need to make this money available annual. And if we get to the point in the near term where that's the case, awesome. Then we divert that funding into other meaningful strategies. The state legislature also funds in a similar way housing programs through the sale and ship program, through the documentary stamp tax, the Sadowski funds, we call them. So those are also really meaningful investments that I've helped supercharge in the legislation I filed in Tallahassee and passed. All of these play together to make sure that our low-income and moderate-income earners have access to housing that's attainable for their budgets on the pathway to homeownership in our community.
And what I like about Hometown Heroes is that in Dade County, we also have what's called the Homeownership Assistance Program.
Yeah.
And you can blend these.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, like, one disqualifies the other, but these you can blend, which makes it even more money is available.
Yeah.
This is fantastic programs. Now, the investments we make in like VPK or even earlier,
sure,
that there is enough data to know how it comes back into the community, right?
Tremendous. And you can view it through two vantage points. One, you can view it through the economic impact of workforce availability. There is a real cost to families of childcare, especially when you have multiple children under the age of 5 at the same time, to the point where one parent might be better served, or the household might be better served for that parent not to work. And now it's a beautiful thing if that's what a family wants to do. It's another thing when they're economically forced to make a choice. And I think that's where we're having a breaking point for families, especially with the tremendously high cost of living in South Florida. So I think the number one goal is to make sure that parents have options rather than forced choices.
Yes.
In terms of childcare costs and affordability driving them. The second is Florida's reading by 3rd grade level, which is the indication. I mean, there's even choices made on the number of prison beds necessary based on 3rd grade reading level.
So this is a bad thing.
Attainment. It's a really bad thing if you can't read by 3rd grade, because in 4th grade and 5th grade, you're using reading to learn. So you don't have essentially the avenue to learn because you can't read. Only 57% of our children statewide can read by 3rd grade. That number is directly attributed to kindergarten readiness, which is directly attributed to early learning and birth to 5. So we just go back, 3rd grade to kindergarten, birth to 5. And the investment we make in early childhood education, readiness for the K-12 system, is going to pay back tremendous dividends to that core principle I was talking about before, expressing one's potential. That's all we want for every single child in Florida, in my opinion. Republican, Democrat, Independent, doesn't matter. And so early childhood is amazing for the workforce component, but it is even more impactful for the outcomes we can change in kindergarten readiness and 3rd grade reading level. We can transform society if all of our young people have the opportunity to truly learn in our education system. And as a father of children with different abilities and strengths, you understand putting them in the setting that best suits what'll help them grow. So to me, early childhood education is a really, really important economic issue and educational opportunity issue.
My boy, he's in 1st grade and he's already starting to learn how to read, but he's in private school. And here's the thing. I went to public and private, so I know the difference from being inside both systems. and I would not send my kid to a public school. And I don't know how involved you are in this, but I see all these schools in Dade County, A rated, A plus rated, A plus 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 rated. And then you hear the stats, you're like, wait a minute, we're failing. I mean, states like Louisiana, Alabama, the Deep South, they're ahead of us by a lot. And all these schools are like, they're all self-proclaimed they're A rated. I guess if you rate yourself, you're going to tell yourself how great you are, but we're failing our kids. So I don't know how involved you are in that, but that's just like, that bothers me to see that. And it scares me too.
There is a tremendous amount of work we need to do in partnership, and frankly, we have. I've worked on policy to make investments on the literacy issue, on the reading issue. Statewide, we've kind of deconstructed and then reconstructed our reading strategy statewide around the best available teaching around teaching kids to read. It's called the science of reading, and this is what other states are using to try to cut off that illiteracy rate in third grade. And we've made $150 million of investment into those reading strategies about 2 years ago. So we're working diligently to try to cut off at the knees this long-term trend in Florida. But there is a lot of work to do, and it is literally at the classroom level. A big piece of it for me is also making sure there's the professionals in the room that can support the teacher, whether that's a paraprofessional or an assistant teacher. I created a program several years ago that was the teacher apprenticeship program, and it connects a individual studying to be a teacher with a mentor teacher who has very high performance scores on their student outcomes, so that they can start developing the skills, the classroom skills, the truly both the pedagogy and the actual teaching skills to give students those opportunities to succeed in any setting. And we've created a $5,000 stipend for those mentor teachers to develop those younger apprentice teachers. These are all kind of parts of the equation on how we need to prepare, empower, in addition to teacher salary increases, which we've done at least $100 million every year for the last 4 years, sometimes up to $200 million. Plus, on top of the
what's already there.
What's there. So there's a bunch of things in terms of considering how to strengthen the public education system, how to strengthen our teachers' efficacy in the classrooms. Lots and lots of levers. I'm really passionate about that because I can't talk about early childhood and investments and kindergarten readiness and third grade reading if I don't talk about bolstering the individuals and the organization that currently is educating 85% of our kids in Miami-Dade County. And so within kind of that pathway, I am one of the leading advocates for investments, for the best efficacy strategies, and trying to make every dollar matter for that kid's outcome.
Well, fortunately, I think that in all the conversations I've had, everybody's behind this. It's just figuring out what's the best way forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got the 2-minute warning like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, no.
So we're way over. This has been a really good conversation for me. I've learned a lot. So thank you for what you do. I can tell you're super passionate about, and you're very knowledgeable. And looking around the country, I think that Florida, we're not perfect, never will be, but we're like in a good place. Yeah. Head the right direction. Maybe not the affordability part, but we'll figure that out. I hope we do.
We can.
We can.
We can. We just need to sit down, understand, one, how to unleash our people from things that are holding them back from fulfilling their potential, whether that's a kid in the educational setting or a mom and dad working in our workforce. To me, if we give people the opportunity to express their potential, we will continue to be the shining example in this country, and we will breeze past. Today, we're the 15th largest economy in the world.
The world.
Florida.
Wow.
Imagine what we can do if we were to unleash more of our kids and more of our adults to become everything they can be.
A lot of times I think that these systemic problems, they're created with the best of intentions, right? You just think, oh, this is a good idea. And then 5 years, 10 years, you realize it wasn't a good idea. But, we just look at it and reevaluate and change it and move forward. Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation. Let's turn to the camera. We'll sign off. So this has been the Autism Podcast with Senator Alexis Calatayud. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.